Hi, my name is James Osborne, and I'm presenting to you a course called Immigration, the Face of America, and we're going to be talking about Cuban immigration. Our instructor is Dr. John Patton, and I chose Cuban immigration for many different reasons, but particularly just how these individuals carried such a strength and a character through a lot of difficult times for their country. Now, before I get started, let me just share something with you as far as location is concerned, because we're talking about Cuba, which has the massive water of 485 miles to be exact that separates us from Cuba. So America, Cuba, and also, if you want to get real technical, the latitude and longitude is 21.5218 north and 77.7812 west. And so not very far apart from us. And there was a lot of issues that were occurring that caused these beautiful people to find their way to America. So there was a thing called the first wave, and that was between the 1950s and the 1960s. And in that you had a leader who would take over Cuba, namely Fidel Castro. Now, Castro was a man who treated people like a dictator would, and basically would tell them what they would do and how they would do it and what would be given to them food-wise. So their idea of any kind of self-made image of however stronger they were in education, however well they did in business, it wouldn't matter because you had this dictator monitoring and balancing it out of his choice. So that didn't set well in the 1950s, especially into the 1970s, because Cuba had a lot of well-educated people. We do call that the first wave. And these individuals were educated. They were professionals, doctors, lawyers, and they were very much welcome to America, because during that time historically, America was involved in an issue called communism. There was a lot of things happening in America at that period of time, that there was a real fear that communism would find its way into America culture. And so imagine now, picture this, you've got these immigrants coming from Cuba that can say, yes, let me tell you what to fear. Let me tell you what's going to happen if this would happen to America. So we're going to flee this regime that we even are concerned about our own lives, but then to feel like we have to be controlled, that we can only work certain jobs if we meet the government's criteria for whatever that is, and who knows what it would be. It could change from one year to the next or one day to the next. And what really appealed that first wave of Cuban immigrants was the fact that in America they would be able to have choices. They would be willing to have the type of homes they wanted to have and earn as much income as they wanted to do, that their education and their skills would be appreciated, and there would be much more a sense of an individuality. Well, during that time period, what's really interesting historically in America was there was a missile crisis, for better terms, that was happening that connected an intention between Cuba and America. You see, what was happening was Russia wasn't really considered an ally, and so it is well known that they had placed certain missile silos in Cuba, which many were understood to be facing the coastlines of America. At that time, our youngest president ever elected, John F. Kennedy, was sitting in that office wondering who's going to pull the trigger first. In fact, many historians, we don't realize how quickly we were at possibly a third world war, as if like down to the 11th hour of what was going to happen. And fortunately, they were able to send delegates. They were able to have an ambassador that would be able to negotiate, and that incident subsided because we were able to come to terms. But that is just the temperature of what America felt about with communism. And so if Cuba is under this governmental structure of that, you can understand why this first wave of Cubans were not called refugees, but were called immigrants, and that they were so welcomed in because, like Americans, they opposed communism, and like Americans, they believed in free enterprise and capitalism over communism, so they were just a welcome sight. And with it, they came with education. So it really was an amazing and beneficial thing. What also is rather interesting was during that time, television became such a tool of communication to America. And interestingly enough, one of the most popular shows at that time was called the I Love Lucy show. Now, why am I going to that? Because Desi Arnaz was Cuban, a Cuban American. So not only was he giving Americans the understanding of a culture that maybe they didn't know about, but that this character, Ricky Ricardo, was able to demonstrate. But also, there was still this heightened in the 60s, this problem with not liking someone because of their color. We call it discrimination. And that was still heightened. Civil rights was at a heightened level. The country was volatile with everything else going on. But here, this sitcom, this comedy, brought not only a Cuban American, a Cuban, into the face of America, but then imagine there was interracial marriage going on. It was really brilliant how that was happening. So there was this acceptance. But now after that, we are now dealing with a second wave of immigrants that come in from Cuba. Well, why do we call them refugees? Because they didn't come with the education. They didn't come with the skills. In fact, many of them came practically on their last breath of life because of illness or whatever was going on. And across the board, whether it was the first wave of Cubans or the second wave, they all feared the possibility of death because they opposed their government. In fact, in the second wave, there was such a fear of that, some were put into prison because they wanted to leave their country to possibly find something better. Now, in that second wave, their desperation was such that they improvised whatever way they could to have any type of a floating object, a raft, anything they could to make it across these 485 miles of water. And it wasn't something like sailors who know when and when not to sail in certain waters because of the time of the year and what may happen or couldn't happen and how all of that would cause them to keep their ships in the harbors because they know that's a season of bad weather. The immigrants at that time, in that second wave, they didn't care. They would rather risk bad seas and possibly being taken over by sharks than to actually stay and possibly be murdered because they're not satisfied with that governmental structure. Okay, so that's why we see makeshift rafts done out of a truck, out of a car. I mean, it's hard to believe that such things people would do, but that's how desperate they were. So even though in the second wave of Cuban refugees, they came because of fear of their lives, because of poverty, because there was not going to be opportunities of any type. They were willing to come to America because they felt like there was opportunities to provide for themselves, opportunities for better living, for health, for even possibly having their own home. Now, the influx of all this immigration, there's actually a graph that shows between 2005, there was probably about 10,000 or so Cubans that had immigrated to America, where up to 2015, there was close to 50,000. In fact, there was such an increase of Cubans coming to America, Miami was considered Little Havana. And so that's how much it grew in the area. And then we talk about the fact that after they're here, what exactly has the Cuban culture brought us? Well, they brought us several things. Like I said, in the 60s, they brought us an understanding of their skills of entertainment and of entrepreneurship. And then we also know that in the entertainment field, Gloria Estefan, for example, is a well-known music artist who has done exceptionally well and been exceptionally successful. And she's obviously of a Cuban descent. And so it's amazing what the Cuban culture has brought to us. It's wonderful, their music and their artistry, because it really lets us know just how vibrant and alive that they are. And they've brought that to us. Now, if I personally would say, how has this affected me, or how do I think this has affected America as a culture? They are exactly an example of why we are America. They're an example of what America's all about. That we're a place where people can come to and be able to thrive and be successful and have something for their children and their children's children. See, that's the beautiful part of America. I've been blessed to travel other countries. I've been in the Middle East. I've been in the Ukraine. I've been into third world countries. I've seen how people have lived. I love culture. But what's interesting to me is the fact that the age of our country is merely but 300 years. I've been in Cairo, Egypt, at the museum, touching artifacts that were 5,000 years old. And I bring that perspective up to you to say this. With little over 300 years under our belt, so to speak, look how strong we are. Look how well we've thrived. Look how much of an impact and an influence we have had globally. And why? Because our arms are open. Because we welcome the diversity of cultures that make us strong. We don't fear their differences. We embrace their differences. And for that reason, we are who we are. We're America. And that's what is breathed into everyone around the world. That's why so many want to come here. Now, I understand today immigration is a little bit different than what it was, say 100 years ago. Because 100 years ago, people just wanted opportunities. They wanted to grow, and they wanted a better life for themselves and for their family. And today we have refugees coming in from all over the world in some countries where their fear is genocide. And then now we're at this level where it isn't just somebody trying to come across our borders because they don't want to be hungry anymore. Now the concern is terrorism. And now we have a concern that are our borders secure? But what we have to realize, we cannot stop doing what has made us so great. So how do we change that? What do we do to change that? We just become more aware of what's around us. And we do that by putting into place individuals that aren't going to discriminate against somebody just because of the color of their skin or because of their accent. But that's going to understand their story. And I think that's what's made America so great, is there are so many stories out there. There's just so many amazing stories that we're hearing about. Cuba's story was people didn't want to be told how to live, where to live, how they could be educated, but they wanted to be a people that could be who they are, that could dream their dreams, not dream the dreams of some dictator, but dream the dreams of who they are and to become who they felt they were meant to be. And they were losing their very identity in a country that wouldn't let them be who they are. And they're rich in language, and they're rich in the arts, and they're rich in education, and they wanted to thrive and be a part of that. And that's what makes America so great. So if I would say today, what value do I place in the Cuban culture? I place great value in them, just as I do other cultures that come to America. I respect them. I embrace them. I'm thankful for them, and I'm thankful for what they bring to America. And I'm thankful we have leaders that see that. I'm thankful that there are leaders there that understand that. So I know that there's so much that we could be talking about today, about other cultures, but for me, what I really find is so alive within the Cuban culture is their willingness to dare to die, to dare to live. that they're willing to face those odds and those adversities, and they're willing to thrive, and they're willing to learn, and they're willing to use their achievements to help others achieve in what they're to do and what they're to become. So I hope today I gave you some insight and some understanding of what it is Cuban Americans have faced. And and what they're facing today is what many immigrants are facing today. The uncertainty that will they be understood as who they are, and not because of their broken English or because of their skin color. Those fears are still there. But how are we going to prevent that from happening? It's letting our children know, and our grandchildren know, and our great-grandchildren know, is don't fear the unknown, but embrace it by asking questions. So thank you again for your time, and I hope today I gave you a bit of insight about the Cuban culture, about Cuban immigration, about Cuban refugees, and about the strength of who we are as America and Americans. Thank you.